So you permanently dyed your hair then, huh, Shane?
Oh yeah, I like bleached it and then did the dye, and because here was the thing. Here was the like long term, right? I was going to shave my head, right, or like get a very close crew cut because my hair has been getting long, and it's been a number of years since I've done that, and it always feels nice to touch the top of your head. So then I had the thought, like, oh, before I do this, I have a friend. I want to do like a separate thing for him, like as the Joker. And I thought it might be fun to just like go full out, like to do as the Joker. Then I'm gonna shave the hair off anyway. So I'll dye it and I'll have it for a couple of days. And then as I was in the process of shaving my beard and all my facial hair off, it occurred to me like, oh, now if I shave my head, I'll just be an Eggman. Like, I'll look like shit. So then I was oh shit, now I have to wait for the beard to grow back in, and it can't just be like it is now where it's just a little stubble. It needs to like be kind of back in before I can fully shave my head. Otherwise I'm just gonna look like, I don't know. I mean, it already looks like a lunatic thing now, and now it would look even weirder if I just shave my head entirely. It would look crazy. Who would stand for that?
I shaved my beard, and then I was going to cut my hair as well, but after I shaved the beard, I sort of had the same kind of moment where I was like, I'm not sure I actually want to cut my hair now.
Right, exactly. Now add to that, it's like neon puke green.
Nice, man.
Like, I'm like, I feel like odd, like walking around,
What do you think? Are you self-conscious? You wonder what people think?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a strange, because the thing is, like, in my normal day-to-day life, right, I have one look. I have like one uniform. I have like one type of shirt that I have in black and dark black, and I've been doing that for years, right? And I just it's like a one uniform look. It cuts all the guesswork out of getting dressed, right? I love it. It's streamlined,
great idea.
Efficient.
I do the same.
But the thing that then I accentuate that with, like where I express myself with a little bit of flair, is like facial and like head accessories. So like I have like some sunglasses. I have some like nice sunglasses that and strange ones. I've got like the red mirrored ones and a couple of other ones. But like now with the green hair, like you can't. That's like doing like a face accessory works if you have like a pretty uniform look, and I'm wearing like just like a black button-up shirt, black pants, dress shoes like all the time. Then I can get away with like wearing some like kind of zany sunglasses. If you add green hair and zany sunglasses, then it's just like it's a fucking, what am I, living in Party City? It's crazy. It's an insane look. Like no one else should have to suffer that. The people at the supermarket don't need to see that in the middle of their day, because then at that point it might as well just be full anarchy. I might as well be wearing like leopard print silk shirts and a giant chain and have like 16 earrings.
I want to see that from you, frankly.
Speaking of hair,
I could see you pulling
in the
that
grocery store. I don't know why I just thought of this, but I saw this man one time at a grocery store who was like totally bald, and he had like the most comical comb over I've ever seen in my life. Where it was just like it was just like several strands. It was like Neil Hamburger almost looking. It was like several strands of hair that were like combed over his head in such a way that it was like they were just like plastered to his skull, and like he had the hair coming up from the back as well, and it was all like barely covered the top of his head, but it was just like, I mean, it looked like glued down. It was the most absurd. I don't know how you could possibly go outside like that and think that you look okay, or that that's a normal look. It's like, I mean, it's like you it's a level of accepting it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yes, right. This is a comb over. I'm owning it. This is a comb over. There's no question about what this is. That's like
I remember did you guys see that movie American Hustle from a couple of years ago?
Dude, I was just thinking that. Yeah. Christian Bale's character.
No, I never saw it.
Yeah, and I remember the first time I saw that movie. It's really good. I recommend it. But the first time I saw that movie, and like the opening scene where he's in it, and typical with Christian Bale, he did like a full transformation. He's got like a big beer gut, and he's got he's bald with this like awful comb over, and he's wearing these like sort of Elvis amber sunglasses all the time, and it's just he's like abused something dealer in the movie. I forget what exactly exactly what his character is, but he's got that kind of voice, you know, like that. And I remember looking in that, and it's just like, that's my future. God damn it. Fuck.
No.
That's me in my 40, 100%. I'm already
you're much
there.
more.
100.
You're very.
That's me too. I mean, I see a guy like that, and I identify.
You guys are. You're both very handsome.
That's not in question here.
Yeah, no, of course, we're both beautiful. We know that. But we also know that, like, you know, if our bodies were temples, they've been ransacked by Visigoths. Like, it's over, you know? Like, that's gone. That ship sailed, like, 10 years ago.
Yeah, I'm kind of worrying how many of us are going to exit this kind of quarantine as, like, borderline functional alcoholics. And, you know, I mean, you know, gyms aren't open, at least here in New York City. And I just saw today that phase 4, during phase 4 of the reopening, gyms are not going to be open. I'm freaking out. I don't know what to do. I haven't had a haircut in 4 months, and I look like fucking dollar store Sean Hunter from Boy Meets World.
Oh, you look great as always.
No, this is nothing.
Dye your hair green, motherfucker.
I will not. I will not.
I mean, you say phase 4, and like to even think to me in those kinds of terms is such a joke with the way deaths are on the rise once again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just I don't know what happens. What happens now?
I want to share a very raw thought, which depending on how badly your reaction is, I may not want to include in this. But like, you know, living in New York City, and looking at the rate of new cases in New York City, if we're really honest, I mean, the curve in New York, in the state of New York rather, the curve looks roughly like it should, right? I mean, there was a high spike, and then there was a very strong, very deliberate taper going towards zero. And every day, and I'm kind of tracking it, every day it's lesser than the previous day, and it's trending well. Other states that are going through it now, and where the epicenter right now, I think LA County, if I'm not mistaken, is the largest epicenter right now.
Is it really?
Yeah. And then, of course, you know, Florida, Texas, Oklahoma, a lot of kind of like some of the southern states and stuff it's fucking embarrassing. I mean, it's flying up.
Yeah.
It's flying up. And it's terrifying. I mean, these are people with, I think, these are states that I think tend to have less healthy populations than, for instance, like, you know, in the state of New York or something like that. So my heart is fucking breaking. And when Cuomo and Murphy and Lamont, the governors of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, announced that they were going to have like a 14-day quarantine for any people coming out of, you know, any people coming into New York from those hotspots, which I don't even know how they would enforce.
Yeah, it's impossible.
But this is a long walk. But what I was moving towards was like, you know, I can see that. It's a good idea. You know, we gotta, you know, try to keep ourselves safe here, especially with the work that we did. And then I started like digging that feeling, and I was like, isn't that kind of like a weird quasi-fascistic, like xenophobic feeling? Like, New York is for New Yorkers. And like, we have to keep out the people that are sick and stuff like that. I was just like, fuck, like, am I the beneficiary of an exclusionary exclusionary travel policy? And like, and how easy is it for me to be like, no, you know, we got to make these, it's just common sense. We got to make these common sense choices.
I'll tell you what, and it really, like, you know, it really shows just how much wearing a mask as the bare minimum type prevention method really has been effective. If, like you said, you know, a state like New York is still trending down, because I mean, you know, I think here, living here, and more so from what I understand, a lot of other places, you really feel the social pressure here to wear a mask. Of course, not everyone else. Of course, not everyone is wearing masks, but like when you go out, most people are wearing masks, and like if you're not wearing a mask, like yeah, there's definitely a social pressure for you to be wearing one. So like even with, you know, this having been the epicenter and having had as many cases as we've had and as many deaths as we've had, you know, for the most part, people here took it seriously. They wore masks. They're still wearing masks everywhere they go, and we're trending downward. Whereas a place like you said, Texas or Florida, where significantly fewer people, you know, took that seriously. In fact, you know, because of a wonderful president, turned it into a culture war issue. Where they defied, you know, wearing a mask, and now their cases are on the rise. I mean, what else do you make of that?
It makes you wonder too, like how much of the decrease could have been contributed to a quarantine and people not going out versus if they had been doing the same thing but just wearing masks. How much of that drop in the curb?
Well, that's what I'm saying. If like, even though, you know, New York has started to reopen, I mean, there's, you know, at least I've seen significantly more people out, you know, than I did a couple months ago, and like you said, if cases are still trending trending down. I mean, of course, the reopen was not too long ago. Well, I guess we'll see what we look like in a couple weeks. But if cases are still trending down, even as we've reopened, I think that just wearing masks does a lot.
Yeah, hell yeah, it does. And it still sucks. Don't get me wrong. Like, it fucking blows.
Oh, it's awful, especially now that it's hot out. Yeah.
But you're right, and I have got a lot of love for New York as much as it fucking kicks your ass. But like, I think that it is very much like a New Yorker thing to just be like, listen, we all got to do this. Like, it fucking sucks. I don't want to put on this damn thing. It's hot. It's obscuring my air pathways, and I feel bad. I got to take it down every time I gotta have a Pall Mall. But you gotta do what you gotta do. But like, I would love if we can to insert the clip here of that Staten Island grocery store.
Oh yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
Oh, when they're kicking out that person, just shoppers, not employees, but shoppers are just kicking somebody out for not wearing a mask.
That's specifically what I was thinking of.
Get out!
Yeah, grown ass woman that acts like a dirty ass kid.
Dirty ass, huh? What do you think?
Fucking tree.
So good, man. So good.
The counter to that is the video. It was going around yesterday. I think.
I know the one already,
dude.
Where was it again? I'm trying to.
Florida.
Yeah, in Florida. Right, where it was somebody had like clipped it from CNN. It was a I guess like a like a community like city council hearing or something about like.
Okay, this is different. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
The public comment section.
Yeah, right. So the enforcement of like the making the mask wearing mandatory or whatever, and there was like a string of people, one after the other, who came up professing how like this is the work of the devil.
Right.
And like, and my favorite line was the woman who was like, God made these beautiful breathing mechanisms for us. We're just gonna toss these out the door.
It was basically a live reading of like Facebook comment section.
I was just gonna say
exactly. Yes, yeah. But it's so startling because like I think there are moments like that, right, where you see that and you realize that there is this whole alternative space in politics, right, that is not... I mean, obviously we joke about it and we talk about it online and how funny and weird it is when it's, like, posted in particular places, and, we have a lot of fun with that, but it's strange to think, like, there is a strong contingent of these people, and not insignificant amount of them, who live in, like, a totally alternate version of reality, where there's not even this sense of being able to agree on like basic tenets of like the world, and
this is some real Adam Curtis shit,
right?
There should be a documentary about this in a few years.
And of course, there are ways that we've seen this, been highlighted a number of times. One that obviously comes to mind is like fucking climate change and just the people in just intense weird denial about it, and all these other, I guess, sort of like culture war issues that touch upon things that are matters of like science or whatever, of like physical reality. But it's very strange to just see it articulated. So like, because there's the funny one in that particular video. The funny ones are the ones where it's like these sort of like monotone, like older people, saying this stuff. But like the really scary ones are like some younger people who are like really impassioned and like talking about like, I don't know, the idea that somehow coronavirus is all just a hoax perpetrated against God. Like like just even trying to piece those threads together is so intense and so bizarre, and it's really unsettling.
Right. Well known plank of the Biden 2020 platform is to kill God.
That's right. Attack and dethrone God.
Right.
If only we didn't kill him long ago.
The coronavirus hoax being part of that. But no, when you started talking about that video of that city council meeting, what I thought you were going to be talking about was, did you see the video of the old man that's like keeps trying to run into that Walmart without a mask on, and security's like chasing him around like a Benny Hill sketch?
The least athletic man in the world, somehow tripping over himself.
It's ridiculous.
I would like to see a sequel to Amerigeddon that involves the COVID stuff. No. Where like the UN is, because that also figures into it, the whole idea that the UN and the World Health Organization are all like lying and part of some like weird internationalist plot to I don't even know what they think like that's the thing. You know, I think we may have talked about it on the show, but I wrote this thing about that other film that came out probably about like a month and a half ago now, Plandemic, that had like a brief viral moment, and that one was like considerably boring, and it's just like filmmaking or whatever. But it was like really intense to see all of these, like, just in the way that all conspiracy theories can just kind of like grow and build and overlap into each other without any need for cohesion or like coherence to them. They just everything gets adopted in, and if you actually try to like think it through and be like, so what's the plan? Like, let's assume that that's true, right? That this is all like a hoax. Like, who is it perpetrated by and for what purpose? Because the way that people are reacting to it is they're like mad that they have to put on a mask to go into Walmart. Like, what? Like, is that the end goal? Is that what like the secret Chinese communist UN blue helmet New World Order plot is to like make your shopping more uncomfortable?
But I've been thinking about this, and I'm glad we're talking about this, because I wanted to investigate this together and just kind of have like a Socratic dialogue about this. And I was thinking about what you said in one episode long ago, Shane, about how fascism, for instance, is not ideologically coherent and can be thought of as like a quasi spiritual movement. Right. Because the grievances that these people have, I don't think they're not wrong. Like, you know, is there a global coordination to keep the larger population of the working class down? Kinda, like it doesn't manifest itself in you know, weird Illuminati aesthetics or whatever, but like I don't know, read the Panama Papers, like right, like a global conspiracy to keep the rich as possible, and you know, there is currency in keeping us down, right? And you know, while it doesn't manifest itself in like Bill Gates is trying to make us sterile with a vaccine or something like that. Bill Gates is trying to control us and enforce his class interests upon us.
Right, sure. And I mean, like, we've talked about on the program that almost certainly part of the package response to, you know, the pandemic right now, but both on the part of, like, companies and on the part of government, will be to find, like, always new ways to intrude upon people's lives and new security measures. And, you know, it's like that creep of, like, bureaucracy and technocracy and just generally, like, elite control. Like, that always comes along with it. Like, anytime there's a disaster of any kind, they'll try to implement new things and see what's going to stick. But, like, the stuff that it maybe is really insidious that's happening underneath this is not the fact that, like, you have to, like, stand apart from each other at Walmart. Like, that's what's really weird to me. Because, like, you know, in Philadelphia, I've also seen, I want to say over the last, like, 3 or 4 weeks, just a decline in people outside wearing masks and stuff. And, like, I forget if we talked about this on the show, but the one that really baffles me, and I see this a lot, is, like, couples walking around where one person is wearing the mask and the other is not. It's like, what's the fucking point? Like, what do you think's gonna happen? Like, you're gonna take the mask off and go kissy anyway later, you know, hopefully in the privacy of your own house. Don't, you know, no public displays of affection, please.
Of course not.
But you know what I mean? It's just like, there are these like weird attitudes, and I think like there's a certain subset of people who are, you know, who have a particular political angle on it, and I think there's another subset of people who are just like, I don't know, I guess they just don't care, or it gets uncomfortable to the point where they're like, I don't want to do this anymore, and then maybe that takes like that's an entry point for them to, like, you know, fall down some weird conspiracy rat hole, and somebody's like, oh, if you know you feel inconvenienced by that, don't you? Well, did you know that secretly they're trying to like steal your blood cells or whatever, you know?
But exactly, and I was thinking about this, and I want to feel this with you guys. Like, what is the dominant alternative explanation? And I think there's like also a component of this, which is the failure of liberal institutions to convince us why we should act collectivistically. Because I don't think that they really want us to work collectivistically, because then that would mean that there's some sort of decentralized coordination amongst us. Like, Joe Biden isn't offering us any inspiring message to say like, hey, this is what we're going to work towards. And if we do this, then we're going to have this completion, and our lives are going to be all that much better. But like, in the difference between like capitalism, which we live under the hellhole now, versus like socialism, is that we don't have any social goals.
Right.
And one of the reasons we're so depressed is that there is no real meaning to our lives in our political economy outside of the fact that we are drones being worked in whatever way is most convenient for a beneficial quarterly report.
Right.
So what's the fucking point? Why would we be working towards a common goal if there is no common goal that's going to benefit us?
I think you highlighted something there that I hadn't really pieced together in this specific way yet in my mind, but I think that's maybe in part one of the reasons why, like, you know, you see these violent reactions to people feeling inconvenienced in these like kind of shopping scenarios, because in a certain way that is the only real sense of public life in our like social reality, right? Because there is nothing else except maybe like for religious people, like, you know, church gatherings and stuff, and people had similar.
Well, that's been restricted as well.
Right, exactly, and people have had similar grievances about that as too. But like, you know what I mean? Like that's the only way, because like everything else, like if you live in the United States, right? Like basically the benefit in your life, if you're an average person, is like these like creature comforts that are provided by like consumerism. Like that's it. And you don't have any other, like you said, like sort of social goals. Maybe you have like career aspirations or something. But like the primary way you do shit is like, I mean, it's same like after 9/11, when like the big thing is like the president got on TV and was like, you know, we can't let them destroy our way of life, so you know you got to go back to get back to shopping. And it's like, right. Really? That's it? Like that's what you have to offer us on the eve of your like you know fascist like plan for like Central Asian conquest? It's like you can't even give us like some weird like, I don't know, you know, Periclean speech about like Western civilization. It's just like, look, you know, we're gonna have to do a lot of wars, but you know, to support the war effort, you got to make sure
stop going to Cheesecake Factory, the terrorist twin.
Right, exactly. It's such a weird, like, I don't know. It's just, again, it sort of makes sense in a way, and it's quite sad. And I think to a certain extent, too, the other side of that, right, is that, like, when there's unrest as well, right? When there is, like, anger that gets expressed against that system.
Says the man with the green Joker hair.
What do you get? But when you know there is that like corollary unrest, right? The way that also gets expressed is like in at least in certain circumstances in certain places is like via like looting and stuff, because there isn't necessarily like there are no like concrete political projects to attach yourselves to. There is no like opposition that's being presented. It's just like there's no solution, right? It's like that's what's offered to you, and so if you live where like the like dominant hegemonic ideology is just like shopping, right? Like if you're inconvenienced by that makes you violently angry, and if you're like oppressed in other ways, like your violent way to react against it, instead of like that's why like the burning of all those like fast food places to me is like so awesome, because
hell
like
yeah, dude.
because obviously they're like weird symbolic gestures, and then people can point out like, oh, that doesn't really have anything to do with like, you know, race or police violence or whatever, but like in a way it does, because it's like there is no like that is the sort of equivalent of like storming the Bastille, because there is no Bastille in the United States. You know, there is no like, except maybe a few monuments and stuff in Washington, and obviously like stuff like the Confederate monuments as well, but those are the symbolic places to express your rage, right? Like and in a certain sense, like that is those are much more indicative of like what America or Americanism is than like the fucking like Lincoln Memorial is. You know?
Yeah.
Like a McDonald's tells you more that you need to know about 21st century American life, ideology, politics, everything in this little fucking wrapper plastic box than you know, like the flag does or anything.
Which is even good, because like rioting, let's just say like in the 1960s or something like that, the counter argument to rioting and looting would be like they're just destroying their neighborhoods. Like that's just like the fucking racist thing to say. And you know, that why would you just break your own place? But the reality is we don't own any of this shit.
Right, it's like Target. Like, the community doesn't own Target.
Even the fucking franchisees don't even own the building.
Right, exactly.
It's just all leased from large multinational conglomerates.
They don't even own the land.
Won't somebody think of the insurance underwriters?
Right, exactly.
You know, another thing I've been thinking about specifically in regards to COVID, like during this our particular moment here, it's like at other times of crisis, like it's like generally like the angle that the leader wants to take, even if it's not necessarily sincere, is that like, you know, this is a time of sacrifice, and it's a time of sacrifice for all of us, and I'm going to stand in solidarity with you and sacrifice with you. So it's like, you know, think about like World War II, like supposedly the Roosevelts, you know, rationed their food as well. I'm not sure if this is true or not, but this was at least the impression that they wanted people to give. And like Churchill, you know, made such a big deal out of, you know, this is our shared sacrifice, and you know we're in this together, and keep calm and carry on, and I stand with you. But like for Trump, it's like it's exactly the opposite of that. It's like I'm not wearing a mask. I don't want to wear a mask. It's good if you don't want to wear a mask. Actually, you know what I'm saying? Like it's so strange. It's so strange, and it's so American. You know, it's so perfect for this moment.
Even, you know, to that point, Chris, even the Nazis, right, who are like probably the bearers of like the most delusional worldview that has existed, right? Like there was this famous speech that Goebbels gave in early 1943 after the fall of after the defeat at Stalingrad. Right. And that was like the big turning point in the war. And that was when it was recognized by them that like, oh shit, we're probably gonna lose this, or at least like the tide has severely turned. And even though, like, you know, amongst the general staff, they were all still, like, delusional about possibly winning the war, and all, you know, there were all these, like, fantasies that they kept kind of spinning to keep themselves afloat and think that, like, there was still some positive outcome of this for this. The whole point of this speech that he made, right, because they had, you know, again, as the propaganda minister, he'd been saying, like, every time there was a defeat, he had been saying it's, like, victory or whatever. But this was such a dramatic moment that he actually went and was basically, like, we now have to, like, do, like, total sacrifice. And that's like the gist of the speech, is that like, are you ready to commit yourself in a way, you know, for the fatherland or whatever, to give everything up, because that's what it's going to take now to win the war. Wow. So like even they were able to be like, you know, okay, this is like acknowledging how bad the situation is. And as you pointed out, like our president is just like, yeah, it's not even real.
No,
like, it's not happening.
Sacrifices for pussies. Masks are for pussies. You know, I don't want to wear a mask. It's good that you don't want to wear a mask. All of your all of your worst, most base, selfish instincts are right and good and correct, and you should follow them.
Oh my God.
What was I going to say, though? Oh, Dwight, I'm glad you're back. You might be happy to know that Baked Alaska, after about a year-long absence, is active again on TikTok. I just checked. I just checked in with him the other day. He's unfortunately, he deleted most of his old TikToks that were all like, I mean, they're all embarrassing, but like he deleted like the most embarrassing ones. In fact, the reason I found out he was active again on there is because I went to his TikTok account and I was going to share, you know, what I consider his most embarrassing one to Twitter, but he's deleted it apparently.
Oh, is that the hit or miss?
Yeah. I've shared it on there before. Yeah,
that was great.
Oh my God, it's so good. How old is too old for TikTok?
I mean, yeah, I'm one to talk.
You're one to TikTok.
You're not making videos. Are you making videos?
No, I'm not making videos.
He's just lurking.
I mean, I'm taking plenty of notes if I were to make them, because I got some ideas, but I don't really know how to go about it since I'm not a visual medium guy.
Yeah, just study Joshua for Congress. He's got quite a few.
Yeah.
Here would be my recommendation, right? This is my recommendation for a TikTok video, right? Write out like a monologue of like a really interesting point you want to make, like a sort of a Dwight's Bite kind of size thing, right?
Ooh.
Like a really long, like a 10-minute long script, right?
Yes.
And then just cut that into paragraph chunks that will like fit somewhere on the screen, and then just put some kind of beat in the background and do weird dances where you're like just pointing with your fingers to different parts of the screen.
Yeah, dabbing.
And then just put giant blocks of text there.
So you get it then?
Oh, I got it.
Because that's that's exactly it.
Yep, I understand.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, it's like sometimes when I'm reading a book, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, this is a really interesting point that's being made, and it is, it's holding my attention. But what would be really nice is like some blinding, flashing lights on the edge of the book, and maybe some music, and also I can only read it for 10 seconds. Then I'll really absorb this information.
But see, your remedial millennial mind can't possibly think fast enough like the Zoomers are able to. Transcended.
Every Zoomer is like Lawnmower Man, and they're just plugged into the VR thing, and they're just like, yeah, I just learned all of history.
That's correct.
I know Kung Fu.
That's correct. Well, they at least know some dances, may or may not be derivatives of Kung Fu.
I also can dance. They don't have a monopoly on that. Let's just make that very clear.
Hell yeah.
I will not be doing it for social media, but I have many years of rave experience.
It's weird. I mean, obviously, it's my political and economic leanings are no secret, and so the TikTok algorithm does a very deft job at showing you the things that you are more attuned to, right? So like a lot of the things that I see are all like hashtag socialism, capitalism, blah blah blah. So it's a lot of like kind of leftist sort of content. But for whatever reason, if you end up
sounds awful. I'm sorry. Really? Go on. I'm sorry.
It's cool. It's cool seeing the kids being just like stolen land and shit like that. That's cool. But then when you drift into, for whatever reason, if you drift into conservative TikTok or neo-fascist,
that's where I like to. Yeah, that's where I land.
It is a dark feeling. Mm-hmm. It is a really dark feeling to wade into that territory because it is fucking bleak, dude. It's been the best is cop TikTok.
Yeah, of course. That's the classic.
Because it's so fucking... They are the most fragile people on earth.
The worst part of TikTok to me, and by that I mean maybe the best, the ones that I enjoy the most, are the ones like... First, there's the whole genre of TikTok that's like adults doing like baby voice, or like, with like they got like baby talk gibberish dubbed over like tracks, like in their lip syncing it. Cops doing those. Have you ever seen any of those?
Yeah.
When they're, when it's like, and the suspect is like, hey, I'm gonna run away or something like that, and they're like infantilizing it, being like, I can't believe I have to deal with this bozo. Not good. It's not good. Yeah, very dark feelings coming off of that. I still remain intensely loyal to the platform, even though, it's a Chinese psyop or whatever everybody says. I don't know. Fucking Instagram's an American psyop. Like, what do you want me to say? Twitter's CEO is a guy that spends like a half an hour a day in a tent in a Faraday cage in his garage. So I
found an ex-girlfriend of mine on Instagram who is like really, really like you can tell that she read like some sort of like how-to or like listicle on like how to be an Instagram influencer or something, because like if you look at like all the photos she posts, like they go through like a color pattern, you know what I'm saying? Like all like several of the photos in a row will have like a teal kind of like, like the color to them, like the objects or what she's wearing or the background or whatever. Then it'll transition into like a different color, and like if you like scroll down the list of all the pictures, like you can see like it like, I mean, it's very aesthetically pleasing, you know what I'm saying? But it's like it's so manufactured. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Chris,
and it's like you could tell that was something that was like, like some other fucking like grifter wrote in like some sort of like how to be an Instagram influencer article.
Gary V.
I just had the idea. We were talking earlier about like potential like solo episodes you could do. You do one where it's just you scrolling the feed of your ex-girlfriends as mostly silent. Every once in a while you're just like, oh come on, man. It's just like for like an hour and a half.
I would listen to it.
I'll have to show you guys. I won't share it with the masses, but I'll have to show you guys privately.
Yes, please do.
Yeah,
please do.
She's in like a PhD program now. I would have been much better off if I'd, stayed with her.
Shane, any thoughts on that?
I don't have actually I do have an Instagram that I made 3 posts to last summer, which is I did the Summer of Stumps.
Oh yes,
that's it.
Of course.
To this day, some of my favorite content.
Yeah.
It's what's funny about it too is when I made that Instagram account, like I posted about it on Twitter, but I had like a less a smaller following and stuff then, and you know, it was like just around the time when we started doing the show and stuff. So like I got like a few people over from Twitter to like follow that account, but mostly like because I guess Instagram is like the big thing with the young people, and I'm including like my age group in this too.
Yeah.
It's like everybody has this, so everybody else who like connected with me on there are all like people from my past that I haven't talked to in a long time. And then when I got to the program I'm in now, like everybody wanted to connect to it, and so I was like, yeah, sure. I mean, I'm on Instagram or whatever. I think like my school follows me on there, and it's literally just like 3 or 4 videos of me going like, oh, my stumps.
Good.
And like everybody else has these like really professional, you know, like really well taken photographs, and like them like, you know, like doing office work or like doing research, or like here I am with like, you know, this like these other group of professionals. I was like really excited to go to this event, and then you scroll over to mine, it's like, oh no.
I think this was about the time. I think right around the time that you were doing those was when the movie The Lighthouse came out, and like I was just like, oh boy, I'm pretty sure old Shano is isolated out in the woods. He's losing his mind.
I don't know if you guys even have Instagram accounts, but I just shared in the group DM. I just shared.
Your ex-girlfriend's
Yeah.
Instagram
So
account.
obviously,
All
obviously,
right.
don't repeat the name, you know.
Yeah. All right, let's take a look here.
But it's very forced influencer.
We are
stuff.
not going to look at this person's Instagram account now on the show. We'll look at
I'm
it
looking
later.
at it right now.
And we'll talk about it later, okay? I like it because I just remember too, one of the few like Twitter crossovers was you, Chris, and that was like one of your dinar deal handles.
Oh, dude,
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
Well, my
That was a good one.
Instagram mostly, and I don't post on it at all, and I don't think in months, but I just continue to get, because it's got the same profile picture as my Twitter account, so I continue to get followers on there that just sort of like probably siphon off like, you know, people you might know, you know what I'm saying, from other people I know from Twitter. But I don't use it at all. It's typically just where I go when I do get banned.
You should use it to like you should start like a multi-level marketing scheme or something on there.
Well, actually, I did use it to fuck with Jacob Wall a little bit a couple months ago.
I love it.
He blocked me, actually.
All right, so let's see, folks. You had some Curious Cat questions. Let's see what we got going on here. The first one is just 4 words, which is pee pee poo poo.
Nice. Nice. Thank
we
you.
all
Thank
do
you.
it?
Shout out to whichever one of my followers that was.
Nothing to be ashamed about.
It is something to be ashamed of.
Shane is going for the temperance movement. Would you consider adding a visual component to the podcast?
Absolutely not.
I mean, we've
I mean,
talked
maybe.
about...
I'm being facetious. Maybe.
We've talked about doing things in other mediums that would have visual components, like maybe doing streaming stuff, some other kind of video content that, you know, people could watch or whatever. But I think, you know, first of all, can't just like tack on visuals to something, right? It has to be kind of thought out. And second of all, it's already like, I mean, production wise, it's surprisingly like difficult to even sometimes put together 2 like well constructed shows a week. You know what I mean? Like that already takes like a lot to add a whole other element to it. I don't know. It would be a lot, and I'm not sure what it would add. You know what I mean? Like that. I think that's the other thing about it, right? Like what does it add? Like, I mean, like hopefully when you're listening to this, you're not just in like a, you know, like a deprivation egg and like with your eyes like welded shut, and you could look at other things, look out the window, look at your floor, you know, weep and look at your floor and listen to our show.
To the listeners, well, I you know, even just for us, there's no visual component on my end. Like my computer won't handle I can't handle a Zoom meeting and also use my camera.
Right.
So
which is a shame, because as you showed on your timeline the other day, you are very handsome.
right. That's what this person's who asked the question is getting at.
Got it. Here's another nice softball one. Favorite ice cream flavor?
In San Francisco, and I imagine much of the West Coast, there's an ice cream brand called Three Twins, which I've only seen out there. I haven't seen out this way, and they make a flavor called lemon cookie, and it is the greatest ice cream I've ever had in my life.
Nice.
Also only available on the West Coast. Another San Francisco local treat is the It's It ice cream sandwich, which is ice cream between 2 cookies, between into oatmeal cookies. So they're fantastic.
Nothing wrong with that. God, we should answer more sweets questions. I suppose for me, I mean, I've now, I guess, been off of caffeine for like 2.5 years, maybe 3 years or something like that, and I'm the most boring fuck in the world. But coffee was great, but in lieu of that, mint chocolate chip, you want to really be in business. Vanilla ice cream next to a scoop of like a sorbet, like lemon, blood orange, raspberry. Get that creamsicle thing going. That's now you're talking. Now you're in fucking business.
Speaking of creamsicles, Shane, I believe you were supposed to eat like
I did
80
I did
of
that
them.
already.
No, you didn't.
I did that.
Okay.
I did that last year. My answer to this question, right, is all ice cream tastes the same. It doesn't matter. It's delicious. It's fun.
You're out of your fucking mind.
It all tastes the same. It's all great. And no one's ever gotten ice cream and been like, oh, it's all good. Put it in your mouth. It's
You're not
sugar.
wrong.
It's delicious. It's one of the few things in this cornucopia of misery that like you eat some ice cream and it instantly lifts you up.
You know what
It's
I
all
like,
good.
which isn't talked about enough, is just the plain frozen yogurt. Just plain flavor, original frozen yogurt. Very good.
You can just chew ice. It tastes great in the middle of summer. It's fine.
You absolute rube.
There's a chain of barbecue restaurants. I believe it's called Dickey's Barbecue. They used to have a couple of them in Virginia, and it's just awful. And like you get like in addition to this like just absolutely enormous platter of assorted meats for like $8. Like, included in the price of your meal is unlimited soft serve ice cream from this like dispenser. You can go just like they got the sugar waffle cones out there, and you can just go dispense it yourself, and you can just fucking eat your 3,000 calorie plate of meat and fried sides, and then you can go eat like 8 ice cream cones. It's wonderful.
Goddamn right. Just before we get to a real question, last one is, Chris, are you single?
Yes, and my DMs are going to be closed as soon as we release this episode.
All right, here's an interesting one. What are your thoughts on Bernie's lackluster response to the recent uprisings?
Disappointment.
Yeah, definitely disappointing.
I honestly I go days at a time now and just forget he exists. He's taken such a backseat to everything that I almost just like I'll see that I'll finally see a tweet of his after several days and be like, oh yeah, Bernie.
I think he even at the kind of moments of his best, or maybe put a different way, the moments where he represented a certain kind of optimism for people on the left, right? Like even then he was the embodiment of a political project that was, already had certain kind of concessions and disappointments in them. But it was like, I was willing to overlook those momentarily in the pursuit of like, if we were to like attain a certain kind of like electoral power, right, through this movement, and then like that could potentially be a vehicle for change, right? Now that that's like not there as much, I think it just reveals those issues with that vision of politics a little bit more, where it's like, I don't know if like he is going to be able to offer a lot in what is now almost certainly going to be his like kind of legacy defining moment. Like I don't think because I mean obviously he's never going to run for president again, and
right.
and given the fact that you have these like two monumental things that are happening, the COVID crisis and then the kind of uprising stuff at the same time, and him not really having like a solid great response to either of them, like it's unfortunate. It's really sad in a certain way if you liked him or if you felt endeared to him, but like I don't think that like moving forward, I think that this is unfortunately going to taint some amount of his legacy. Not for everybody, of course, because his movement was like really broad, but certainly for like that the corner of kind of radical leftist people who are hoping to use him as a vehicle for certain change, right?
You know who else has taken a backseat to this, and it's no surprise at all, but like what a fucking joke. Where is Barack Obama?
Oh yeah.
Where is Barack Obama in all of this? Has he commented
literally
at all?
Rehabilitating George W. Bush on live stream.
What a fucking joke, dude.
Yeah,
what a joke he is.
Yeah.
To Bernie Sanders, I mean, I think first and foremost, he's a United States senator, and he is a senator in a conservative conservative body, right? Like the Senate is a conservative, anti-democratic body.
Sure.
Like he's a senator. What's he gonna do? He's a senator.
No.
And furthermore, there's two things that I think are good about him taking a back seat. One is his center leftism, right? His like relative centrism. If you looked at any like true ideological scale, a worldwide ideological scale, he's like a left center or center left guy. It was not far enough, as we've seen, and that's a good thing. I would argue that us moving even farther to the left would be a good thing, and as a popular movement, not just as like just us schmucks that are agreeing with each other in like podcasts and shit, but like as a broad movement, we have moved farther to the left than the Bernie campaign as a rate limiting step. So we've moved farther left. So that's a good thing. And then the second thing that I think is very good about this and our broader political moment right now is that there are no leaders that are emerging out of this. We are not centralizing power. Bernie's campaign was a centralization of power and a formalization of power in a electoral system that I think is maybe dying a little. Like, we don't even know, like, and I know, Shane, you've been kind of sweating this, and I don't think you're wrong. Is like, is Trump going to secede power at the end of his term, or if he gets voted out in November and in January, whatever? Like, who the fuck knows? So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, and obviously a decentralization of power is good. They're trying the right and conservative. Okay, Shane's going.
You can continue. I would argue for a very strong centralization of power, but that's a different point.
In this, so I mean, what I'm saying is like they can't demonize one person.
Right.
Like they can't they're trying to do that with Antifa, and nothing is sticking. And I think they're trying to single out people and arrest people, but they can't. Like, there's no head to this Hydra. You know what I'm saying? So yes, I mean, Shane, I know. Like, I also think that we should have like a strong state that helps us do the things that we need and blah 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 blah. But like,
and maybe a couple other things. Am I right?
Yes. I know Adam Baffa also really wants a strong state, which I'm happy.
Yes, that's true.
I'm happy to be here to represent his voice.
Good. I'm glad somebody said it.
Yeah.
But I just not that this necessarily speaks to that exact question, but I wanted to articulate this because I don't think I've really said it online, and it has been something that's been rattling around in my head. I've seen, not so much recently, but like when a lot of the uprisings were first starting, I saw a lot of like people that were like, and I can forgive it to a certain extent, understanding that it's like kind of responding to a meme, but there were a lot of people who were doing this like, because there was that Bernie meme for a while. It was like, fuck around and find out, and it was like, you fucked around, now you're finding out. The idea being that like, because there was this kind of moment of like, oh, through the system, this like mass movement could potentially like take over like political power through the like electoral process. And then when that was like shut down for the second time, like then therefore like after that, like then there's like this kind of more like physical material, like, anti-electoral or whatever like position, right? Like the idea of like rioting or uprising being like the alternative to that. And I understand the why those things can like seem linked, but to me, I just think it's important to point out that like that's not like a narrative thing that like the same people who are like invested in Bernie, then Bernie dropped out, now like they're rioting or whatever. It's just that both things speak to similar moments, right? Both things speak to a general rage about like particular things, but then those get generalized, right? And so they're both responses to a state, a collapsing liberal state. They're both responses to that thing from some kind of left-wing perspective, and that's the way that they're linked. But I don't know. I just saw, not that this person said it or that, anything we said on the program. It's just I have seen like other people kind of try to make this like correlation and be like they're the same thing. And I think that is just like the wrong diagnosis of it. I mean, I think there's lots of stuff right now. I mean, even all the weird COVID QAnon religious people we were talking about, they're also responses to like a failed state, basically, like a collapsing state. So
if I may just comment real quick, Dwight, I get serious Colonel Kurtz vibes from Dwight right now, just sitting in this darkened room like Marlon Brando at the end of Apocalypse Now.
I was thinking the sheer brilliance of it. Just the brilliance of it, the tiny piles of arms. And think the horror of it.
I just knew you would nail that too.
I appreciate that, bro. I really appreciate it.
You're so good at that. Jeez.
I spent a lot of time.
GC Pete's.
You're significantly the thing. You're about 60 pounds underweight and not sweaty enough. Not near sweaty enough.
Buddy.
You know, the thing I heard. What's interesting? The thing I heard about that scene. I've heard that they specifically shot Brando in the dark for that scene because like he's supposed to be playing this like military guy who's been living in the jungle for fucking months or a year on end, and then he showed up for filming and he's like 260 pounds. so supposedly that's why they made the choice to shoot that scene in very low lighting.
That's really funny. I didn't know that. No, we don't talk enough about how crazy Dennis Hopper is too.
In that movie or generally?
Just in general, no.
I'm not sure when it would have ever come up.
Oh yeah, well. Do you know the story about the knife and between Dennis Hopper and Rip Torn?
No.
Something, Chris. This is like way up your alley, but like it's something.
I got a story about Dennis Hopper. Tell yours first.
Okay, so yeah, it was something somewhere along the lines of like one of them. I think Dennis Hopper invited Rip Torn to lunch, and they were at lunch, and then the story just immediately says, and then Dennis Hopper alleges that Rip Torn pulled a knife on him during lunch.
I can see it.
And then Rip Torn came out with a statement that it was in fact Dennis Hopper who had pulled a knife on him during lunch. Google it.
There's did you ever hear the story about there's an Andy Warhol painting? I believe it was a painting of Chairman Mao that Dennis Hopper owned. And one night he was, I guess, particularly intoxicated, drunk or something, and he like pulled out his pistol and he shot it.
Wow.
So now it's like obviously it's even more valuable. Like it's since sold because like now in addition to being an Andy Warhol painting, it's an Andy Warhol painting that has a bullet hole in it that Dennis Hopper put there.
Right.
Fucking hilarious.
Pretty cool, right?
There's a question here I don't think we should read. It's just like what turned you to socialism. We've talked about that before.
Yeah.
That's not helpful. Yeah. That's not. This is an interesting one. This is not an interesting one, but whatever we'll say. Who is the most normie account that each host follows? Probably Nancy Pelosi, but I just do it so I can seethe with rage.
Pepito the cat.
Oh yeah.
You don't know Pepito?
Unfamiliar.
Oh, I'm gonna open your eyes, dude.
Please.
I probably follow a number of people because I follow a lot of people that are outside of the circle of left Twitter.
Yeah, I do too.
But also specifically for like the academic stuff, and like people that I'm sort of interested in sort of professionally connecting with or talking to, or people that I've met and stuff. And the funny thing is, like, some of them will like see the other posts that I do. Not that I even post that much anymore. And occasionally I will
stumps.
Occasionally I will get likes from them on stuff. And usually that just fills me with like immediate embarrassment. Yeah. I feel so awful. It's like, here's this really cool person that's like really well established in their field. I've met them. They're really like charismatic and nice. And they've been like very welcoming to me. And then here's my post that's like, like what if the Joker was in Mad Max? and they like it, so.
Well, yeah, Dwight. Actually, let's get this on recording here for the sake of the listener, in case they don't know. Pepito the cat. I believe the @ is @ Pepito, Pepito the cat. It's just a fucking the whole account. All it is this cat in I believe in somewhere in France, and they have like the owners have a motion sensor camera like set up at its little pet door. So every time it goes in, every time it leaves the house, and every time it comes home, it like snaps a picture and posts it automatically. And that's all the account is. It's like Pepito is home, Pepito is left home, and like you get to reply with like really cute stuff like "Have fun, Pepito. Have a safe adventure." It's just
that's very sweet.
Yeah, it's extremely wholesome. It's wonderful, and I'm half tempted to just unfollow everybody else except Pepito.
Do it. All right, here's an interesting question, which I think we've kind of answered before, but I think it's refreshed in a way that I want to talk about. This is actually from March, but bear with me here. The question is, my stepmom, as I'm sure many of your viewers' families do, says that people who are poor are only that way because they can't manage their time wisely enough. Obviously, this is incorrect, and I debated her about it for a while, but she seems to have a pretty firm hold on that belief. Is there anything you guys can think of that would help convince this white upper class woman and people I'll inevitably encounter in the future like her that poor people are actually just being repeatedly fucked over by late-stage capitalism and are not just bad at time, money management? Thanks a ton. I'm a huge fan. Thank you.
Didn't we do a question that was similar to this?
Yes. And I want to co-opt it.
Almost identical, even down to it was, in dealing with, an older family member who's set in their ways. It just shows just how common that is.
Yeah. I want to co-opt this, and I want to imagine that this question was asking, what do I do with a racist family member that is talking shit about Black Lives Matter?
Okay.
And I say this because I encountered something like this, in the last month or something like that. And somebody who was someone was asking, like, someone was saying something relatively racist and was just saying, like, something like we were talking about earlier, like, they're just, people are looting and they're just destroying their own communities and stuff like that. And the question they were asking was like, I don't know if I have enough to articulate this. I don't know have enough if I could articulate a proper counter argument to that. And to that point, I want to say that it's totally okay to just say, to not counter it with some intellectual coherence and just say, that shit's dumb or that shit's racist.
Right. Yes.
It's totally okay to just make somebody else feel uncomfortable. It's like, if there's a dog that's doing some bad behavior or barking at a stranger or something like that, you can just be like, hey, stop. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes, yeah.
There's no intellectual coherence to it. There's no like explanation required. It's just like curbing that behavior exactly when it's happening. Right. Just to say to reinforce to that person that it is unacceptable to something like that. To say something like that.
Yes, yes.
And for the record, if you need an intellectual, going back to the original question, if you need an intellectual argument against blah, 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 people are just this way. Well, in fact, poor people proportionally spend more money on things like education, spend more money on things like, that you could put under the category of like self-betterment or something like that. Mm-hmm. That is a quantifiable fact. And tell them they're fucking dumb. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, what this question, and I think my response to it the first time we did it, I think last time I made some, maybe glib comment about like, if they're an older family member, eventually they're just gonna die. But like, seriously, on a more serious note, in terms of like, how do you actually address that, like interpersonally, right? Like, so, in my study of like radicalization, right, and reading a lot about how other people get radicalized, and in this sense, I'm talking about, into like far right stuff, right, and especially like online in the last like decade or two, right, like looking at those processes and stuff. And there's also concurrent to that, there's like a lot of literature about like de-radicalization and attempts at de-radicalization, right, and that's often like whenever I did a talk or a presentation about my work, that was always like the first question. It was like, so what do we do to like, stop people from becoming Nazis or whatever? And, in terms of like what actually works for that, there are a few programs and a few like projects and, experiments and stuff I've seen, and they all seem to revolve around this idea of like interpersonal normalization, which means like if you take somebody who's like deeply racist, right? Like, so, like in this case, let's say like a white guy who like hates black people, and you bring him around and introduce him to a bunch of black people, and you make them like sit down and talk, right? Like after a certain amount of time of saturation in that, right? Like that person is likely to let go of some of their prejudices, right? And that's sort of common sense, right? It's like, if you actually know people and you talk to them, you can find common ground, you realize like, oh, we have more in common or whatever. Now that's like very nice, and it also is like something that like feels very good, and it's especially the reason why those kinds of approaches take a kind of multicultural liberal attitude towards these things, and because of that, those are the kinds of things that'll get funding, those are the things that get some kind of thing, like notoriety and stuff. And again, there's nothing like necessarily wrong with that approach, except for the fact that it doesn't scale. There's no scalability with that.
Right.
And you also have to assume that at the outset, the racist person on the other end is like willing to enter that. Like they have to be willing and open-minded to a certain extent to be like, okay, fine, I'm going to sit down with somebody and I'll talk to them. And they have to have some kind of thing. Like you can't force somebody to do it. And like, how could you do that on a mass scale? If you're talking about like a systemic racism that exists in like a culture, right? Or a systemic like ideological attitude, right? It's like, sure, if you sat down for like, and again, what's the time scale on that? How long does it take? Does it take 2 meetings? Does it take 10? Are you talking about a 6-month project to like deal with like one particularly racist person? Think about all the time and resources that takes. And then also think about the vulnerability you're putting like the black people in that situation in, right? Like
right.
We're gonna need you to like go and make this racist not racist, right?
Which for the record, I mean, that's also something something that's so fucked up is that like white people just turning to people of color and saying like, what do I do? Like, tell me how to be not racist.
Right, exactly.
Which is still putting the onus and the burden on the people who are incurring the racism. Do your own fucking homework. I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
No. I mean, that's 100% right. And I mean, that also applies on a class level, right? Like, dealing with people who are like sort of, you know, weird and out of touch and have these like stupid ideological beliefs about like poor people or whatever. As somebody like, you know, comes from modest means myself and being in like certain academic circles and stuff, I encounter that shit all the time. And honestly, I think Dwight, the way you put it is the best way. It's just like, you know, make it known that like I'm not gonna let you talk like that around me, at least. And if they have an issue with it, then guess what? I'm not gonna talk to them anymore. And that might seem a little bit easy maybe to say in terms of like, you know, whatever professional or friendly circumstances. It might be a little bit harder if it's a family member, somebody you really care about. But look, there are people from my life, like people who are close friends and people who are family members who turn out to be like weird fucking Nazis. I stopped talking to them. Sorry, I don't have the, because then they also always want to engage. Because then there's people like that who always want to like needle at you and be like, you know, no, challenge me on my beliefs. It's like, no, I don't want to have this fucking I don't want to like debate the merit of like the value of human life every time I talk to you. It was nice playing Mario Kart with you when we were 12, but it's over. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need to like find out like you have like kids now. You'll probably imprint your shitty attitudes on them. That's sad. That's what I feel. I'm not excited for you and I don't care about you. And also, you can do that with anybody in your life for any reason. You can just cut people off. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think in that there's nothing wrong with the stick versus the carrot. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, just fuck them up or create consequences.
If you can't convince them otherwise, which is most likely the case, then you have to shame them into never revealing their beliefs in public. That's it. And people will be like, oh, that's cancel culture. Good, I want to cancel them.
Right.
I want to bleep cancel them, okay? That's the solution. That is... Oops.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think like even like Jared Holt made this point too, something like that, about like whether or not cancel culture even exists, because he was just like, conservatives don't get canceled, like they don't receive any consequences for their actions unless, you know, they're deplatformed or something because of popular pressure. But like amongst their inner circles, like they're never canceled.
I had one person once, by the way, who I just kind of stopped talking to after a series of years when their beliefs turned like really weird, and I was just like, I don't want to deal with this person anymore. I'm done with them. I don't want to process this. I don't want to get in this fight. A few years later, they kind of reach out to me and they're like, you know, I ended up changing my mind about some of these things. And I'm talking about like some really extreme, abhorrent beliefs. And they're like, I ended up changing my mind, and part of it was like, I was like sad that you didn't want to be my friend anymore, and it kind of made me think like, are these beliefs that I'm holding on to worth not being your friend, you know? And so like in that circumstance, it kind of worked. A certain kind of social isolation worked.
Wow.
I didn't then go on to be his friend. I don't have enough time in the day. But, you know, the point here is that, like, again, it might be difficult to do that in a family situation, especially if you, like, live with people, and if you're younger, if you're in, like, your teen years and you're still living with your parents or whatever. Obviously, that's very difficult and that's very challenging. But eventually, you know, you'll grow up and you'll move away, and you like, legitimately don't have to talk to them anymore. It's like, once you're an adult, you can decide who you talk to and what you spend your time doing.
Oh, yeah, there's one person I went to high school with that I still, and like, right. And when I say I still talk to them, like, we're cordial, and like, we just spoke like a couple weeks ago for the first time in several years. But like, yeah, the people I went to high school with, like, I mean, the only interaction with them I have nowadays is at a great distance. It was just me. Literally, I reactivated my Facebook account like a month or two ago because I was curious. I was like, I wonder which people I went to high school with are like in the QAnon shit now, because those are exactly the kind of people I went to high school with. And surprisingly, it was the ones I expected.
Yeah. I should also say, too, like, you guys can tell me what you think about this, but like, if you are white and you have grown up in a white space and you have people in your lives that aren't actively like reacting to or talking about in a positive way, like the Black Lives Matter movement, and they are ignoring it or they aren't talking about it, like, I would argue that that's contemptible enough to cut them out. Like, this too fucking important. It is too fucking important not to take it, not to push this movement to the absolute max, and to change the fundamental relationship that we have with the punitive arm of the state.
And of course, like, you know, you might be, like I was saying before, you might be in a situation where you can't necessarily do that because you're dependent on certain people for certain things, or, you know, you care about them, and obviously those are slightly different circumstances, and you have to make an evaluation in your head. Like, that's the thing. Like, I've had older family members that I cared quite a bit about, and I saw them become like really strange and weirdly right-wing as they got older, and I started doing the calculation in my head because I cared a lot about them, and I wanted them to like value what I thought, and, you know, all of those kinds of things. I wanted them to, you know, for us to share common ground. And eventually I got to the point where it was like, this is really exhausting, and I did the calculation in my head. I was like, by the time I maybe convince them, they'll probably be dead, so like, does it become worth it? And I mean that, I know that sounds glib or whatever, but I'm serious, because ultimately, if you believe in a certain kind of set of politics, right, like, ultimately the goal is to like win, and win is by like beating the enemy, not by like like, I mean, obviously there are you know, there are like borderline cases, and there are people who are maybe like, you know, you might have friends who are like, you know, a little insensitive in one way or another, and those people you might be able to approach to or talk to, or they might change. And it also depends on ages, right? Like, if you're younger and you're in a certain friend groups, like, people will develop and change over time, and you could be a positive part of that. But if you're talking about like people who are entrenched in their beliefs and are like fully grown adults,
yeah, exactly,
you know, like, they're like, if fucking
what are you gonna do
if like huge, like, look at, like, if 9/11 didn't change their mind, you know, like, if the fucking COVID shit didn't change their mind, if like seeing all the videos of like, you know, black people being murdered by the police didn't change their mind, is a conversation with you going to? And that's not a dig against you, that just shows like the power of their entrenched way of thought. And again, ultimately the way is to not to like befriend the stepmother, but to conquer them, to win. You plant the flag and you say, we won, our ideas prevailed.
I mean, I think, you know, I think ultimately the way I look at it is, I'm not really, it seems, it's not something I've ever really wasted any energy, or expended any energy trying to change anybody's mind. I mean, in interpersonal relationships, I mean, I've got, I mean, pretty much my entire family, at least, you know, my mother's side of the family in the South is all very right-wing, very reactionary. And, you know, I don't have anybody in my life that really needles me about it, or like wants to debate me, or wants to like rub it in my face or anything. But like, you know, I'm not going to change anybody's mind, especially an older, like my mother. Like, I've showed you the fucking ridiculous text of my mom about the Aunt Jemima pancake syrup, and like, yeah, it's dumb and it's obviously a little bit racist, but like, she's 70 years old. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm never going to change this person's mind. And I think that, like, I don't know. I mean, I've, you know, in friendships as well. I mean, not everybody, you know, people have bad ways of thinking. It's not even necessarily malicious. Like, a lot of people just don't think of the world in a political way. Like, I've had plenty of people with like ignorant, you know, right-wing kind of ways of thinking, but I'm not going to like end the friendship with that person necessarily because of that. You know, I'm not going to expend the energy to try to change their mind either. Some people just don't care, and it's like, I'm not going to make them care.
And I think that's a good point too, which is to say, you know, in terms of like, and again, if I recognize I could be being glib about this, and it might not be a solution that works for a lot of people vis-a-vis like whatever, cutting people off and that stuff. Like, it is possible you can just have relationships with people that matter to you in your life, and you just have to like have some compartmentalization for it. Because especially, you know, when you were saying like, you know, your mom being 70, right? Like, my dad's like in his 80s, you know, and like, I care about him a lot, but there is just no way, with the exception of me like moving in with him and living with him full time, there is no way I can challenge the grip on his mind that Fox News has. And I mean that seriously, because like,
of course,
like, there is absolutely nothing that you can do short of like cutting the cable connection to their house, you know, which, hey, if you know where the cable connectors are, if you have a pair of bolt cutters, you could probably get some easily on Amazon or whatever. But like, what you're fighting against, if you're on like our side, whatever, like the left in general, you're fighting against a huge entrenched power system that works in all different kinds of ways, and all these like social osmosis ways, and then on top of that, like really intense and sophisticated propaganda methods like fucking, you know, Fox News and
Amerigeddon.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if they're already into that stuff to a certain extent, there might be like already too far gone. I don't know, you could like try dosing them with like really high powered psychedelics.
Please don't drug your folks.
And then just read to them from Mao's Little Red Book or whatever.
I mean,
maybe that'll work.
Shane, there was an interesting thing that you said, and I want to pull that thread. I mean, firstly, I mean, for a lot of these folks, like, as an example, the people that are at the Florida public comment section in like front of the city council or whatever that was, like those people are never going to be reachable, like unless they have some Clockwork Orange level deprogramming.
Right, exactly.
Like that is the liberals have ceded that space. They've said we're not going to touch it, and leftists just haven't had the power. Chris, what is it?
I'm sorry.
What is it?
Go on.
No, I gotta know. Is it Pepito or whatever?
No, it's people testing. I guess people testing the limits of the supposed free speech on the Parler app. Someone just replied to me.
Please don't read it out loud.
It's fine. With a screenshot of it's at Christopher Walken on Parler. I am going to shoot a police horse. Okay.
Oh God.
Which, of course, obviously, I read in Christopher Walken's voice.
Is there any chance that you would do the impression?
No, that's for you. I'll pitch that one to you.
Anyway, but what I was gonna say, Shane, what you were saying about like, oh fuck, I can't recall. Anyway, but I did it again. But about like domination, about like winning, about winning with your ideology. Sam Sachs of the District Sentinel, I think it was this morning, did a post something about this that was just like, there are no conservatives that are trying to make concessions with the left.
Right, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and like liberals are always trying to like make concessions. And I think I was talking about this on Jared Holt's podcast, Shitpost. Like, liberals libs still think like, oh, there are still some intellectually valid points that the fascists have. We just need to find what they are, and we can find some common ground there. Like, no.
Right.
Political power is about consolidation of power, and it is about like a battle of ideology. Fuck this culture war shit. It's a battle of like ideology. Do you believe that human life has sanctity and deserves to be defended? I would say that the left says yes to that. I would say that the fascists say no to that. So like you have to defend what you believe and push for that as intensely as possible.
And I to add on to that too, like, because like you say, Dwight, it is like it's an ideological battle, right? And so in terms of like where you could spend your energy in terms of, having discussions or generating thought or trying to like convince people of arguments, right? Like, to me, it just seems like axiomatic that you would do that within a leftist space, because we don't have any power. Like, and we don't, we the organizations we have like are all like split apart, right? So like the whole, like, that's why, like, there was this thing like when I started getting into like activism and stuff in my like early 20s, right? There was always this criticism I heard whenever I'd go to like a demonstration or whatever. It's just like, oh, well, everybody's just like preaching to the choir there, right? Like, if you do a chant, like everybody just like thinks already like you or whatever. And to me, that's like a stupid dead-end argument, even though it sounds kind of clever, because the whole point is that, like, yeah, we are now collectively practicing that knowledge. We're like teaching each other those things. We're like connecting with the other people who believe those things already. Like, that is a positive project, right? And so every and again, you can make this own calculation based on your own social or family relationships or whatever. But for me, I started to realize, like, every minute of like argument that I spend like arguing with someone who disagrees with like some fundamental belief I have is like equivalent to the energy that it would take me to spend like 30 minutes to an hour talking with somebody who already kind of believes the same things as me and is also trying to figure those things out. Or alternatively, and what I hope our show does in some small way, right? Like, it gives you some extra knowledge. It gives you some extra ammunition. It gives you some extra tools to fight in that battle, right? Like, you know a little bit more. And, obviously our show is like an entertainment show. I'm not making some grand claim about its educational ability or whatever.
No, this is like a hardcore academic podcast.
But I mean, but you know what I'm saying, right? It's like internal propaganda versus external propaganda. It's all about like, spending that time to like, instead of like arguing with, the people in your life or whatever, like, you could educate yourself, right? Like, you can spend time doing that. You can connect with other people who are more inclined to believe what you believe. And I think one of the positive things that we can take out of this whole moment of like, even the failure of the Bernie movement, but also like this uprising stuff that's happening now, like, again, whether at Wayne's or whatever, is that there are lots of people who want the same things as us. In like everywhere, not just in like big cities or whatever, in every locale. And so no matter where you are, there are some people that you can connect to, hopefully, and reach out to and talk to, start having those conversations, start, learning together. And if it's too difficult in your area or whatever, you have, this wonderful World Wide Web. And you got us, your pals, your true friends, your real buddies.
That's right. We are your only friends.
We are the only answer.
Go into your parents' wallet and find those green notes, those green pieces of paper, and mail them to the following address. I believe that was what like canceled Soupy Sales.
What?
Google it. Nah, we'll talk about it later. It's too obscure to bring up this late in the episode.
I'm extremely intrigued.
This is up your alley. It was like a children's comedian.
I mean, I know who Soupy Sales is.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Hey, we'll look into it.
I didn't know he was canceled. I didn't think cancel culture existed in the 50s.
Hang on.
Here we go. You pretty much do anything you wanted.
I'll tell you right here. New Year's Day incident. This is from Wikipedia. On January 1st, 1965, miffed at having to work on the holiday, Sales ended his live broadcast by encouraging his young viewers to tiptoe into their still sleeping parents' bedrooms and remove those funny green pieces of paper with the pictures of U.S. presidents from their pants and pocketbooks. Put them into an envelope and mail them to me, Soupy instructed the children. Several days later, substantial amounts of money had begun arriving in the mail. Sales stated that the total amount received was in the thousands of dollars, but qualified that by stating that much of it was in play money. Oh, that's cute. Whether or not it's true. Sales said that he had been joking and whatever real money had been sent would be donated to charity. Send it back. You've got the return address. He wasn't canceled, but parents' complaints increased. WNEW's management suspended Sales for 2 weeks. Not bad. In modern America, you would have been sent to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba.
Free Soupy Sales.
Yes. It's fine if you garner money, but it's going to be taxed, damn it. Well, he was from North Carolina. No shit. Did not know that.
Maybe as a potential wrap-up thing, since we're approaching that time. Yeah. I tagged you in this, Chris. I haven't watched it yet, but there is a
Carpe Donktum rap.
A Carpe Donktum rap.
I saw.
Get the fuck out.
I haven't watched it either, but I saw your tag. In fact, I'm eagerly awaiting us to finish recording so I can watch that.
Hold on. Maybe I can unplug my headphones and play it, and so we can all listen to it, and then we can play out.
Yeah, please. Yeah, maybe that'll be our closing track.
My name is Carpe, and I'm here to say I spread propaganda every day.
Who's tired of oppression? Me. Who's tired of the double standards? Me. Political suppression, I'm a speech. This is not a platform, dog protections have been breached. We are not your slaves, Carpe Donktum should be free. We are not your slaves, you can cancel what we think. We are not your slaves, you shut my mouth, I cannot breathe. We free and Carpe Alex Jones, and we achieving it this week. You sent it Donald Trump, he put a warning on his tweet. And if you shut me down, then we performing in the streets. We getting POTUS re-elected just to hear you screech. We getting Donald Jr. after that to get you weak. Seethe, I wanna see you grinding on your teeth, Jackie. We got a lot of pissed off people on their feet, Jackie. Think, the ad revenue subtracted when we leave, we made 1 million parlor pages in a week, Jackie.
I'm imagining like one of those like airbrush t-shirts. It's like R.I.P. Carpe Donktum. He's got bars. What can I say?
Hey, whatever happened to fucking Lil Trump?
I was just thinking that when a couple minutes ago when I saw Shane shared that video. I think I'm gonna tag Lil Trump and call him a bitch and taunt him.
I think he got banned.
Suspended,
Oh,
right?
did he really?
Yeah, he owed us a diss track, man.
Yeah.
Oh, man, well, fucking rest in shit then.
Pussy.
Fuck you. Yeah. Stay cool. Stay cool. Stay cool. Stay cool. Stay cool.